A group of Vietnam veterans is suing the federal government today, saying they were given less than honorable discharges for violations that these days would be recognized as symptoms of PTSD. Joining me now with the details is the Wall Street Journal's Michael Phillips. Hi, Mike.
Hey, good afternoon, Sarah.
Thanks for being here. So what are some of the reasons that these vets were discharged?
Well, there tended to be a pattern with the 5 veterans who were named in the suit, the 5 plaintiffs. They tended to have something traumatic happen to them in Vietnam. They came back to the States still in the military, often started not showing up for work, going AWOL, sometimes for periods of months. There's a pattern of nightmares and other signs of PTSD that they suffered. And they'd get into trouble because they wouldn't show up for work, and you have to do that when you're in the military.
When we're talking about the Vietnam War, how did the Department of Veterans Affairs deal with PTSD back then? I mean, was it a thing they recognized?
Well, it's an interesting question. It really wasn't an official kind of medical diagnosis until well after the Vietnam War ended. And yet some of these vets who are asking to have their discharges reviewed now are being told by the military, well, you weren't diagnosed with PTSD. There's one of the cases, James Davis is one of the plaintiffs, an Army vet from Vietnam, when he appealed to the military and said, well, why should I have a less than honorable discharge or other than honorable discharge when I was suffering from symptoms of PTSD? And they told him, this was just last year, that there's no evidence which shows the applicant was diagnosed with PTSD or any other mental condition prior to discharge in 1974. Of course, you couldn't be diagnosed with PTSD in 1974 because it didn't exist.
It is very frustrating for these vets. Is there any response yet from the Pentagon?
The military has not yet answered our questions about the suit. It's a snow day down here in Washington, so we have to be a little gentle on them, I think. But there was a suit back in 2012 which had similar themes with one particular vet who was the plaintiff. The military ended up settling with him. I don't know the terms of that settlement. And what this suit is now being refiled in the hopes that it will be a class action suit on behalf of lots of Vietnam vets who have gone through PTSD and been discharged in something other than honorable terms.
Now let's just talk really quickly for a second about how it actually impacts your life if you're dishonorably discharged. What did these Vietnam vets say their life has been like since then?
Well, just to be clear, they're not necessarily dishonorable discharges. These are discharges that are called other than honorable. So there are various gradations in discharges. But there are several issues that come up in their life. One is there's a stigma attached. You are thought not to have done your service. Secondly, you are not qualified for all the veterans benefits that you might need after a year in combat or 6 months in combat. So there are lots of setbacks. And then if you go to an employer and they say, well, what did you do during the last year? Well, I was in the military. Did you have an honorable discharge? And if the answer is no, then that might be something that employers will frown upon and you can't get as good a job. So that is the claim that the plaintiffs are making, that the military has done them harm by giving them a other than honorable discharge when their service, in their view, was honorable. They simply suffered PTSD as a result of their service.